This is Asteria, and Oshi's joining me to discuss the most recent chapter. We've got a chapter 8.58 PFH, and we're going to go ahead and get straight into it. We've got some general impressions. Oshi, do you want to share with us your overall thoughts about the chapter?
Sure. I was impressed by the Syria aspect, and I really wish it had been the only part of the chapter. It was well done. That's all I can say. It just felt complete and a chapter in and of itself. And I really thought when the stream ended on that was going to be the end of the chapter. It felt suitably epic. I think Syria has finally come up to the level that the Horn chapters have been for Kissenver, Pisces, and although I don't particularly like the Evelyn story, even the Evelyn story. As for the rest of it, I feel like I'm dead inside because I was the only one who went like, oh, that's nice. I didn't particularly. It felt a little dangling to add the Aaron bit. I can understand why Pirate did. They're taking a short break. They wanted to move the story forward, and there was artifacts left over, and they're trying to create a sense of, I don't know, happiness, goodness, niceness, whatever the hell you want to call it, into the Wandering Inn before Christmas and before the end of the year. At least that's my impression of it. I just don't. I didn't particularly think this was superbly, supremely great in every aspect. That's all. Just
we'll get more into that as we go section by section. But it seems like overall impressions were positive.
It was fine. It was a good chapter. It wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fine. It was a good chapter.
Well, Action Kermit disagrees with you and thought that this chapter was high octane fuel. And the Pack Rat was very excited because the Horns seemed to be getting very famous with each character, even having a whole chapter to the. Well, no, sorry. The Horns seem to be getting extremely famous because, Kiston even getting a whole channel to himself and is always excited to see more Horn chapters.
Channel to himself? What does
he's got the TV documentary.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. We're getting some simple responses from Jivan and Courier that I don't. Was that an at me for some reason?
No, don't worry about that.
Okay. Jivan says, "I love this chapter." Did you want to expand on that, Jivan?
Hi, I feel like well, I love the non-payoff of the Alchemist of Saria walking in going, yeah, that checks out. As I don't think everything in verse should be this beyond the pale Cthulhu-esque uncomprehensible horror. It's nice that someone who does bad things in a gross way isn't generally accepted by the world. And the rest of the chapter
nice
I liked.
That happens?
Ah, yeah, I love it.
You liked it. Alright, Mr. Wrinkles is going to speak.
Who changed my name? Oh, okay.
You changed your name.
It's Mr. Wiggles, guys. It's Mr. Wiggles. He just someone changed it to Mr. Wriggles. I'm betting it's...
It was Rat, for sure.
You guys are mean to each other.
I really loved the chapter. I thought the Aaron bit was great. Honestly, that was the highlight of the chapter for me. Just having all this coming together feeling. This wasn't truly just a Syria chapter. It was the Horns chapter. It was a continuation of last chapter's Horns chapter, and we got a lot of moving forward for all the Horns. We got Kissenver getting help from Fedaheb, Aaron trying to get help from Fedaheb to all the Horns at this point. And so I feel like we're really speeding up the Horns, coming together finally. And I think that last bit was really important to that, as well as the Syria part, which was just, a continuation of what we left off on last chapter.
Asteria,
so
we can hear clicking from you, so mute yourself a little bit. To redirect a little, Wiggles. I should stop being mean.
don't. I swear, I'm.
Okay, Mr. Here's a couple of questions for you regarding your commentary. So, the aspect of the chapter that you said, like everything moving forward and Aaron, but it was such a small part of the chapter. It was literally the end, a little piece tacked on, at least to me. Was that enough for you to feel like the story is moving forward? Why was that enough for you to feel like the story is moving forward? There's a few small events connecting. Neil, you're also we can also hear your stuff. Go ahead, Mr.
I just thought that it was just coming together of what uh of a way to start moving the horns together overall. Like, this is the beginning of all the horns getting together. Yisame, I don't know how to say her name at all. Yisame, I guess, yeah. Yisame.
Yusame.
Oh my gosh. Either way, Yisame giving her support to Yivlon, Aaron giving all of Kelt's support to all the horns, Kissenberg getting support right now as well. And so it just, that little bit at the end really started to move them forward more. It's a small section, yes, but it's really important because it's starting to move it forward very quickly.
Okay.
And then, as well, I just loved the Aaron section. I just thought it was amazing. Like, the very end part of the chapter was like great, just great.
Okay,
Loved it.
Jivan had a little comment. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mr. Wiggles, but Jivan says also the fight in this chapter was the best for a while, I reckon. Okay.
Okay, so let's hold off and make sure that we're sticking to sort of sections. Right now, we're
we are
talking
still
about
the chapter as a whole, though.
Well, I think we're starting to get into individual sections, so let's hold off on that. Nerdy Fisher.
Hang on. Brack said that feels like a sign or turning point in comment to Mr. Wiggles' opinion that the chapter at least feels like a sign or turning point. And Nerdy Fisher had thoughts on the chapter, if you want to go.
Yeah, so last overall impressions, and then we'll move into subsections.
I thought the chapter was quite good. It definitely, I think everyone was, how do I phrase this? I thought it was good, and I thought it didn't leave me disappointed, and definitely, I feel like the last few chapters, even though there's been some weaker parts, they still left me excited for the next chapter. So I would say as a whole, I still thought it was good.
Okay.
To be terribly honest, I wanted to address some specific points, but that'd be getting into specific parts. So I won't hold that discussion off.
They're coming up.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I'll hold off on that discussion.
Okay.
All
Rosie,
right, so to end...
Wait, Rosie had
recap.
one thought.
I know. To end recap, Rosie said, I agree, it moved things forward. I'd say especially since I see the subversion of Syria going so what at the Alchemist horrors being a signal that we're moving past the individual horrors we've seen them before, and it's going to get bigger as time goes past with more existential horror. Okay, and that's going to be a big part of Syria's section, is sort of talking about her reaction and interaction with the alchemists. Before we start there, though, let's go ahead and talk about Erin. So she shows up a couple times in this chapter. We got a check-in with sort of how she's handling the Deadlands, and we've kind of got a timer going because she's starting to assimilate there, so to speak. So our first question is kind of dealing with the cure, right? Her cure is on the horizon. What other obstacles do you guys think might stand in the way of that cure? Or do you think it's just a matter of perfecting it on these poor prisoners and test subjects in Kelt?
We'll give a few seconds for folks to react in the reaction channel. I got some typers, so okay. I had to respond to some general chat questions, But you're asking, what the fuck are you asking? I'm sorry. Her cure is on the horizon, and what obstacles?
Her cure is coming. What other obstacles stand in the way of that cure?
I'm gonna say this right now. Fuck. Let's hope nothing. I'm done with obstacles at this point, because any further obstacle will just be literal narrative delays. It's just if you're delaying it, it better be for a friggin' ridiculously good reason, because what is the point? You've already set everything up. Either get to it or just don't bother.
Well, Action Kermit thinks that Belle is going to throw you a curveball and potentially mess up everyone's attempt. Pat points out that we might still need to make the mushroom connection. Tomio thinks that there needs to be more experts, high levels, super rare ingredients. Courier says that the issue with Kelt's cure is that it's complicated, and that's going to kind of catch him out. But Javon thinks that we can probably wrap this all up in a chapter. And Mr. Europe sort of points out that we probably have all of the pieces. Just the big issue is, how do we get Erin to basically back to her body, right? If we're not going to transport the body, how do we make sure the spirit goes back to the body? Because if you guys all recall, Israel is got some issues with some gods chopping down spirits where Erin's body is in the Deadlands.
Okay, reading what Jivan said, I think the last obstacle will be completed over the course of a chapter, whatever it may be. So you're saying there will be an obstacle, except it's just going to be resolved in one chapter? Then what would be the point of the obstacle? Obstacles are supposed to be challenges, and a challenge that's immediately broken up in one chapter? Why don't you could speak, Jivan, you're good.
Well, basically, I believe there will be one final, after they get all the pieces together. But if you just have in a random, or near the end of a chapter, for them to just grab all the pieces together and it just works, that isn't a nice momentary payoff. You need to have in addition to it being a payoff for the entire volume, you also need to have a nice in a chapter or two payoff as well, where they quickly overcome a challenge and push through the last barrier for whatever it may be to finally achieve the end and have all the payoff at once, so on and so forth.
We do seem to be pushing forward, though, pretty quickly on the cure. I thought it was a ways off, but with this chapter, it seems to be moving along. So I'd agree that maybe it's right around the corner.
Courier adds that the final barrier likely involves a raw communication with the Deadlands, and that can't not be a roller coaster of events. One other thing, I have a question for Courier, for you. The reason I'm also mentioning this is, your original comment was, what's lacking with Kelt's cure is complicated. It could either be more steps to ease the defrosting, which a water mage might help, or it's missing some sort of soul catch summoning, who knows. So, are you saying that aspects of the actual, it's too complicated, that there's too many pieces, and that it's easy to disrupt? Is that what you're talking about, or?
I'm saying it's hard to tell how close Fetulap is with the cure, because he could be missing a step in transitioning between the defrosting of a body and then regenerating it. But there could also be what is going on with this testing with the soul of the person who already died is being testing on? Is he present in the Deadlands? Is he being summoned? Is he able to come back to it? It could be a lot.
It could. Kylera says Siria's aura should fix the defrosting without thawing problem. Do you think it's as simple as that, Kylera? I'm not sure. Can you? Oh, yeah, you don't have a mic. Sorry. Neil says
she normally types things.
Yeah.
In.
Neil says right now everyone is working on the cure independently. The final obstacle is getting all the people together to solve it. Okay, and
they are communicating with each other. I think the only big missing piece is, Ascrosh is clearly not directly involving himself, and we're missing the goblin mushrooms or whatever it was. But for the most part, everybody's in contact with each other. Okay, so go ahead.
Kylera brings up a good point in the general chat. Fetohep has to have greater teleport scrolls. He can just send the horns to Israel and move them back. I mean...
True, he just has to get them all in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, if he does have access to all these, to Kelt's vaults, then it's definitely possible to do that, right?
Should be. Let's see. So we've got lots of speculation about the cure, which is super exciting, and I know we're all eagerly waiting to see how that's going to play out. I personally think we're going to skip over the cure, and Aaron's going to just show up in the middle of a big event. But we shall see. Other things on Aaron. There was a couple lines in there about her. Feto was able to see her. He speculated on what they did to make that so. And we kind of got a nod that he was like, oh, they could have done X, but they couldn't have done that. They wouldn't have done that. So do we have any speculation about how Aaron is bound possibly to Kelt and why he can see her like the other kings and queens, but nobody else?
Okay, since it was complete silence,
Wow, there's several people typing.
Yeah, there's completely, but there doesn't seem to be any clue as to what Kelt has done. There's no textual evidence. There's speculative evidence that perhaps they went through the same kind of binding process that binds the spirit of the kings and queens to Kelt, or something similar, but it's just... there's a severe lack of information. It's one of those things where you can tell that Pirate is setting up for a future event, and that this is not going to come up until they're ready to come up. We have... Okay. Brack says the obvious answer would be an honorary ruler because she's bossing them around sometimes. Nerdy Fisher says Aaron got a title in Kelt royalty or something similar. Action Kermit says, I think they made or have made Aaron a queen. Mersha face. Neil goes, Syria has also has the circlet. Oh, sorry. That's for a different aspect of that. Okay. Oh, Kylera notes something interesting. Maybe it's not Kelt. She just summoned the Sword of Arthur again. The Sword of Kings. I was about to say Arthur. Thank God.
You think I have unique pronunciations?
I'm trying to read other people's typing accurately instead of just paraphrasing, so give me a break.
What? Paraphrasing is perfectly valid.
Jiven goes, first guess by a character is always at least slightly off. So I assume Aaron isn't actually a queen of Kelt, but maybe something to the side of it. And Courier says, I don't think they've done anything to Aaron, as Fetohep saw Aaron before he even started interacting with the previous rulers, and they were shocked that it was even possible. However, this doesn't mean Fetohep won't come to his own conclusions and start setting Aaron up to be the next ruler of Kelt in the long term, because that's what he thinks the previous Kelt leaders are planning. Pat, responding to Kermit, says, Aaron is like that horse Caligula wanted to make a Roman senator. That is so rude, Pat! Tomio says, I just think it's possible Aaron is only half dead, and that's true. I did ask this question in Acid Chat a while back, or at least speculated on this, that there is a possibility that Kelt is making a play for Earthers. Not necessarily Aaron herself, but Kelt's rulers and its planning tends to be generational because they're undead and they tend to be thinking with an immortal's point of view. There is a distinct possibility that they're not necessarily just planning for Aaron to be combined, but they're planning for a future in which Earth is connected to Kelt, and they want extremely powerful or charismatic individuals connected so they can benefit from the presence of Earth.
That's a good point. Guess we'll find out, like you said, once the moment is appropriate.
Yeah.
For now, just speculation. A couple other big things with Aaron. There's a cost, right, that she had to pay to kind of be able to message her friends. So we're going to have to sort of see what that cost was because it wasn't mentioned. And then we also did get an update on that giant magical portal or whatever it is that Feto has been working on, that the Deadland mages have been basically providing and critiquing. So that seems to be revving up. So it was a nice little update and check in with those guys to sort of see what's going on and make maybe Aaron's cure a little bit more urgent. You did mention Immortals, which actually is a nice segue to our next section with Syria.
Well, we're not done with Aaron's question, though. There's a second question for Aaron.
Right, but we're also about 30 minutes into the recording.
Okay.
And the cost speculation is probably just a little bit more of the, well, it could be something and it'll entwine her fate. But if you guys are really excited about it, we'll talk about it.
I think it's an important question to have because it's pretty significant hint to their plans. And if Aaron is possibly... Okay, here's my theory about this. So the question that was added to the doc is, quote, there will be a cost for it. There always is. Aside from being a nice witchy moment from Aaron, what price will Fetohep's intervention have in the future? Here's my thing. Fetohep it wasn't just... I don't know why people thought it was a witchy moment, but for me, it was like a moment of revelation because Fetohep is already thinking about after Aaron is revived. And bet you like nothing that there's going to be a new inn in Kelt, and the new inn is going to be connected to the old inn somehow. And remember, we had Terriarch talk about how the teleportation magic could have been expanded, and there could be a whole network of... Holy crap, Kelt can now take control of everything from that point. Mr. Wiggles has a reply.
I real quickly disagree with you that we're going to get an inn or anything. I think Erin's not going to develop an inn. I think she will have connections with Kelt, but probably not get another inn there. That said, yeah, Mr. Wriggles, go for it.
Wiggles! Don't call him Wiggles.
I could call him Pings. That's also the name, so...
Yeah. I had a different read on it. I thought it was more referring to the cost that Fetohep and Kelt themselves would bear rather than the cost that Aaron would bear. Because as they're getting more entangled in the affairs of, Chanjar, can't say that name either. As they get more entangled, they're gonna get, further rivalries, further issues popping up for Kelt, and it'll just become more and more difficult for them. And so I think that was the cost rather than a cost to Erin herself.
Okay, we're good if you want to move on.
Yeah. Courier's last thought in this is that they think there's an in connection, but probably not with Kelt invading everybody. They're content to kind of look over their little piece of paradise. All right, but with our immortality connection, so we got a lot on Syria. This was primarily a Syria chapter. We got her backstory, finally. So let's start there. What did you guys think of Syria's backstory, of her interaction with the shifthold captain that we also got a sort of nice bit of background to as well? And all the lore drops about half elves.
Okay, we got like 30 people typing, so I'm gonna wait for that.
Action Kermit, do you want to share your opinion, or
if you want to speak? I think he was still making a salad, so you might not be at his computer. Or...
How long does it take to make it? Anyway,
I don't know.
Okay,
Mr. Europe has
yeah, it just took me a while to like tab into my phone and stuff. So I thought it really worked as a backstory, just because Syria has really thrown herself into associating with the, mortal people who aren't as long-lived as the elves. And it's kind of a weird thing when you consider that, avoiding entanglement is how they stay alive that long. It's one of their defining characteristics. But Syria just doesn't go for it. And, just the fact that, someone that close to her was dead for 5 months before anyone noticed, that just completely disgusted her. It's like, why wouldn't you, notice this wonderful person? That's terrible. That's a perfectly fine motive for her to go out into the world and, embrace the entanglement that the rest of the elves shy away from.
Syria definitely doesn't follow the trends, does she?
No, she doesn't. DM.
DM.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. DM Craft points out that we still don't really know how her grandmother died, especially if they live longer than we think. Yeah, I guess the deaths from the half elves was a little bit still confusing. It seems like they can just keep living, but if they start, maybe I'm interested to hear your thoughts about that part as well.
So my interpretation of it and DM Craft's version was interesting because I hadn't thought about that first when I was thinking through what the half elves do. So the implication of what's written is that the half elves are functionally immortal, but because they can be killed and because they live in the real world and they care about things, they get involved in things, they die before their time. And DM Craft or Rat says, how did her grandmother die if they live longer than we think? I think that's how she died. Like being involved, like maybe there was a moment where she just got involved or something, or she cared about something, and even in the slow lane, like they live, maybe she ended up suicidal because her kitty died, because that's the way they live in an entirely different mental state. Like I'm saying, in an entirely mental space.
Her cat died, and
I'm trying to be like create a just give me this, please. I don't.
So you let the cat die, huh? Jeez. All right. Yeah, I know. We love you too. All right, Mr. Europe's up.
Mr. Europe?
Yeah, I think the only real revelation, I think, is that I don't know if we found out that her grandmother was dead before, but the only real revelation that I can remember is that we found out Saria ate a lot of bugs because she was starving and didn't know how to get food in the wilderness. Otherwise, most of the stuff, like her being having stolen and doing some arson here and there, has already been said before in chapters, just very sporadically and without any kind of detail. So it was great that we finally found out exactly how it all strung together. With regards to the grandmother dying, I don't think it's like personally, I didn't feel it was a mystery. Just that Sarah had talked about how eventually everyone, like, if you just live for hundreds of years, eventually something weird happens, like you just trip on the way down the stairs, or maybe a branch just fell off a tree and hit her in the head. And that was it.
Tomio says I haven't. Oh no, sorry, not Tomio. Jivan says I don't think how her grandmother died matters. She could have caught a cold. The reaction is the important part. It was split up into 3 parts, but I got it. Nerdy Fish, you got an opinion?
Yeah, I kind of like, I don't know if I'd call it subtle, but kind of the nod to where, I don't know if anybody else had a fear, but the fear that Syria would become this cold-hearted killer, or, like, what would kind of change their fundamental character. But there was a nod in this chapter to where, yeah, she's different, but she's still her. I think that came out in the conversation with, there's kind of this almost like worry that she wouldn't care what she saw on the ship told. But that was unfounded.
Okay.
I don't know.
Jivan, sorry, I'm trying to do this, but Jivan says in response to Wiggle's comment, after the flashback where her grandmother was introduced, it was immediately established she died 20 years ago. Courier says, we have no idea why the grandmother would have died, but I think it's great to know that the reason Syria left is so mundane, at least as far as we can see. She just realized her grandmother died, and no one else knew even after 5 months, and just burnt bridges and left. The situation has been hinted and talked around for so long, but we get it in this wild clinical situation with another half-elf mad alchemist. It being so mundane is relieving by itself, and a fun punchline to the situation. I think we'll end it on that. And Tomio, you have an opinion about serious bug eating?
Share it verbally?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you want us to read it out loud?
If you want us to read it out loud, you gotta type it out. Okay. Packrat says...
Well, so I can talk about bug eating for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love how the bug eating just came back around. Like we've joked about it forever, and now suddenly here it is in one of these pivotal moments where she's connecting with like the most recent psycho that Pirates introduced. And of all things that it comes up is eating the crab and the roaches. I love how that little fact has become such a big thing and such a pivotal moment for Asteria's character. Tomio, go ahead.
Yeah, Tomio.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I think about Sirius bucket thing is it's quite sad really, because all this time we thought about her eating bug is some kind of weird quirks. And people in the in-world and we the people readers make fun of her. But now we know that she ate it because our starvation. So it's kind of make me feel bad that we making fun of her all this time.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it really did kind of hit me. That was one of the good moments from Sirius section. Just recognizing how all the weird quirks she has a reason. It isn't just a weird quirk. She's starved. She had to eat bugs. She does all these strange things. She always packs food and eats a lot. It's because she starved for years after she had to work. She left her village. Oh, it's like parallels to foster kids who hoard food because they never know where their next meal is going to come from.
Great analogy, actually, and it fits Siria's character like really nicely because she's like, oh, ice chipmunk, ice squirrel, she's so silly, but her humor is a way to deflect almost unwanted attention on her and keep people from taking her too seriously, which works in her favor.
Packrat said, as a quick aside, I thought this was really interesting. It makes me want to go back all the moments she's mentioned it. With the bug eating, I assume is what they're talking about.
It's all the way back in like volume 4, 3?
1. I think she was mentioned.
I thought she wasn't introduced until later.
She was introduced in volume 1. If you were listening to No Killing Goblins, you would know that. Sorry. Courier.
Wow, Shay. Have you listened to the music discussion yet?
No.
So
Syria has spoken. Courier says Syria has spoken about hard struggles early on outside of the village, but this is definitely an expansion on it. And DM Craft agrees with me and says we got POV of Syria in volume 1. Okay, and we're gonna leave it there if you want to end Syria section, or are there more questions?
Let's just briefly touch on the circlet's abilities, right? We've all been speculating, what does the circlet do? What does the circlet do? I found it particularly interesting that Syria said that the circlet finally allowed her to do what she wanted as a mage. Like thinking of her, like, did anyone sort of read into Syria's lines that maybe she isn't neurotypical? She's like neuroatypical, and whatever it is about the circuit, it allows her to just better focus her thoughts.
Oh my god.
I'm interested to see people's takes on that. And the circlet's abilities.
Oh my god. I we're like on the nose right here. I'm literally pointing on my nose. Is because that's exactly what I thought. Syria has always had an atypical reaction, and part of that is her time spent in the villages. If you spend 10 years of your life watching a tree grow or something, then you have a different view of the world, and that view might come across in as if it's a neuroatypical person. Like their brain is wired differently, and because it's wired differently, that may have been why the previous owner of the circlet designed it to work the way they did, recognizing that their ability to distance themselves from the worries and day-to-day struggles allows them to process things a certain way, and all they needed to do was let go of this one aspect of themselves, and that's it. Jiven says, I think not being good at magic is neurotypical. I'm sorry, could you tell us what you were saying in voice?
Her struggling with magic would be the normal thing to do. it'll be neural atypical to maybe be absurdly good at and like intuit magic immediately.
Okay. And Brack says, I mean, that's normal half-elf stuff. Her leaving is more off from the norm. That's true. Courier says, I think a point of the circlet made earlier, not this chapter, I think, was that it broke her out of a train speed of thought. I think the circlet is cursed in a fashion that allows it to host a wide number of ghost, mages, information, and the circlet has been slowly syncing with what Syria is and her needs and desires. Okay, that's a interesting perspective. I'm not sure I considered that, but we're gonna end that question right there if you guys don't mind. And I want to bring up the shift hold itself and ask you guys: was the shift hold scary enough for you? Did that play out the way you in the typical way of pirates fear-mongering selves?
So we had some discussion on this as the chapter was actually being written, but I don't think that shift hold ranks up there as like super scary in terms of like all the other horror moments we've seen, and I think that's just it's suffering of the fact that we're having to sort of speed the plot along. We didn't have enough chance to build it up. And there were moments that were trying to set the mood, but if we'd seen mentions of shift hold and like what it was, and it had been teased throughout the rest of the volume, or even in earlier volumes when we first got to know alchemists, maybe that buildup would have made it kind of resonate a bit more. But it was kind of like, oh, blood and gore, yeah, that's okay. For me and what I was sort of seeing with other people when we were chatting about the chapter.
Cool. Action Kermit says shift hold scariness was deflected by Syria's blasé reaction. Brack says it worked well without changing tone too much from the drowned knight. He says there was tension, but it wasn't focused on jump scares and gross out fear. Nerdy Fisher and Mr. Wiggles both have a comment on this, so we're going to start with Mr. Nerdy Fisher and then we'll do Mr. Wiggles. So
I thought that no matter what Pirate tried to do, I don't think it would have met our expectations because of especially after like the Pisces chapters with the slavery, and I think them leaving kind of room to the imagination to think of what was down there was the best they could have done.
Okay, Mr. Wiggles.
Because I honestly don't think, yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, Mr. Wiggles.
I think it was intentionally left up in the air as to not be so scary. You know, I think it was intentionally shown more blasé. It's like we've seen this with Rickery and Pisces back in his chapter. We've seen this kind of thing before, and now, you know, Syria is seeing it for herself, but she has the circlet now, and it's helping her out in ways that, you know, show its worth. And it's helping her to deal with it. And it's not supposed to be scary for us, even if we can logically say that, yeah, this is a horrible situation that is going on in the ship, but we don't care at this point. It's not important to us. That's not why we're here.
Cool. To wrap it up, Tomio says it's not scary for me. It's not scary for me, and I think it's intentional. It's supposed to be horrifying, but it's not there. And Courier says, I believe that we originally would have had the Syria circlet reveal after the shift hold interaction, perhaps after even the city fight in the chapter. Okay. Fuck you, Blues. You don't ask questions here.
Well, hold on. Blue brings up a good point.
Yeah, he does. That's why I'm saying you.
Do we think shift hold is actually under control of another power, specifically Acetylos or Sleepy? Or is the alchemist just his own weird, crazy self, and he's kind of creating something free of both?
How do I do a strike through in Google?
Control Alt S.
Control Alt, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Control Alt 5.
That's not it.
Or maybe it's Control Shift 5. I don't know. Anyway, DM Craft thinks that his experimentation is sort of what led him to subvert control from Acetylos, and that's why all the research was burned. because he was basically able to, wrest control free from whatever the power is. Kylera says, if you eat the meat, I don't think you're ever free. We don't know if the alchemists involved in the scandal did that themselves, though, or just forced it on others or kind of made use of it. That's a good point. There's definitely saying that we're kind of gotten references to what happened in Acetylos a few times, actually, from when I think Salus first mentioned it. And it's interesting to see if that'll play up again later in later chapters, because Syria did mention, right, potentially buying potions and all sorts of things. I think the thing that really struck me about Syria and Iru's interaction was all the horns are kind of facing these like existential horrors and things that are morally wrong, and they're all kind of taking a stand against them. Syria kind of looked and she's like, this is cruel and awful, and I'm not really going to do anything about it, and like walked away. She said she didn't necessarily have the power to be able to do anything, right? So she's like, well, I can't do anything and I'm leaving. But I think that there are interesting parallels between each of the Horn's journeys. Like they're gathering armies and support and confronting themselves. And it's interesting to see how they react and their development. And I think it's really going to be interesting to see when they all come back together, if they're going to be able to meld back into a team after each of their individual experiences. Neil says that a possible influence from Acetylos might actually be there, but as long as he sort of stays physically removed from the actual place, he doesn't really think that they'll be able to do anything to Iro. And Pakrat thinks that the immoral Syria is embodying her roots. We've got this repetitive phrase of entanglement throughout the chapter. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. And we also learned where Syria's cursing comes from, and that tree rot is actually quite a terrible curse. So you can use that instead of fuck, Oshi.
Okay, DM Craft he says...
If you want. Let's see. Anybody else have any thoughts, or should we move on to...
Wait. But DM Craft says, I feel his experimentation led him to subvert the control to him from Actilios. That's why all the research was burned. He was able to break the control from the Craven City. That's why his research was burned, not because it was creating horrors. That's an interesting idea. Like, yeah. And Kylera says, if you eat the meat, I don't think you're ever free. We don't know if the alchemists involved in the scandal did that to themselves or just forced it on others, used it on them. And Neil says, possible influence from Actilios, but as long as he stays physically removed from it, I don't think it actually can do anything to him. Good
Oshi, I just read all those out loud.
I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I was trying to find the thing, and I muted myself, and I thought I heard everything. My bad. Okay.
It's like emos at the same time, so...
My bad.
I mean, maybe I muted myself, and people have been listening to silence. I don't know.
I muted the entire thing without thinking about it. I thought everybody was quiet while I was looking for the button.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Syria's sort of showing off her badass self this chapter. And
the circlet question was a good one.
Well, kind of just talked about it. Okay. Does anyone else have any speculation about the circlet's abilities? Have we seen them all? Is there anything else that you think it does that we haven't figured out yet?
I mean, we haven't moved beyond the shift hold scene as far as I realized.
Well, it's okay. Talk the circlet in all of its entirety.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the circlet scene, of the shift hole scene is the revelation of her.
It can at least glow.
Yeah, it can at least glow, and she bluffs her way out of the shift hold. So, did that surprise you? Did you guys think that was all it could do? What the entire after scene where she goes back into the city, dives into this conflict.
We just jumped from ending a scene to the middle.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like things.
I think the end of the shift hold scene was good, and what we've seen from the circlet so far has been purely disillusion and trickery.
No,
and this scene has fitted so far. The shift hold scene.
I mean, the circlet showed okay. Maybe
it glowed.
Mistook.
That's an illusion.
It didn't glow. Syria made it glow.
Maybe I mistook.
It glowed. It was the thing that was glowing because nobody could tell whether it was an illusion spell or an effect of the thing.
Maybe I mistook.
If Syria did it, they would be able to tell.
Maybe I mistook what the circlet could do. But from my point of view, the circlet had 3 functions. One, it has some kind of active illusory effect that can be manipulated to create illusions, lights. It does all of that. It does the passive effect of removing your morality, quote unquote, which I still don't really understand how that works. It's such a
So let people speculate on it.
yeah. I'm getting there. Just let me go through the whole thing. And then
No,
it
Oshi.
does an intelligence boost. And the last bit, the important bit at the end that I thought everybody picked up on, but not everybody seemed to, is that it allows you to functionally tap into its whatever mana well it is, and then do.
That's literally the end of the next scene. We haven't even started talking about.
We're not
scene.
going through this by scene by scene. We're just talking.
Well,
it's
no,
been mostly
Courier's right. We have been.
It just kind of jumped an entire fight sequence and just started talking about the mana well.
So let's dial it back. So we've got Oshi finished the powers.
No, we still have a fight scene to go through. Go ahead and talk about that. There's a question attached to the fight theme too.
There is?
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so Syria walks off the gangplank and fights in the streets because Drown Night is happening, an attack on the Siren's power in Severe. So she and the Siren have a nice little chat, and then she decides to go rescue our favorite regenerating pirate, Omusk. What did you guys think of the fight scene? Who just said what?
I just said I thought it was great fun. Like lots of big flashy stuff happening. Saria demonstrating all her skills that we haven't been able to see since she leveled up. Good fun.
Great. Mr. Europe. And then Courier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree that the fight scene was great. I love the callbacks to Ilfris skating along the water. I love the part where Saria, the part where she said the circlet allows her to be like what she kind of imagines to be, like what she wants to be, and just going around completely controlling the environment, just everything we've heard about how cryomancy is supposed to work, and compared to way back in the day when she just made 2 ice walls and a cave entrance to funnel enemies, and that's about it. It's just threw around some spikes here and there, and it was super cool to see how far she's come.
Cool. We have a comment from Tomio, which a lot of people were very happy to upvote. Syria was ruthless, and I love it. Brack, quote, says that there was, from the circlet, illusion, combined spellcasting, parallel thoughts, a mana well, amorality, and it hides its stats.
Courier, did you want to comment?
I'm just going to type it out.
Or you can just comment.
If you want.
Well, I was thinking that Syria's fight for this entire scene after she broke out of Shifthold and came into the city was a good evolution from what ended up happening in the previous village against the adult crowd. In this situation, once she got into it, got her objective, she brought it to a center area and then started building a fortress from the ground up. And all the scenes in a way describe the steps as things escalate and expand. And I thought it was a great pacing difference compared to versus the Krellers, you've already made the fortress and they're not there yet. Well, in this situation, you have Syria building it in the middle of a combat zone and then finishes and is just one, except for the, final twist and then the circlet save.
Did you think that this was a nice callback to when we first saw her master fighting and rescuing them from the... Oh, no, that wasn't her. Well, yeah, when we saw her master fighting or using the ice magic.
Wasn't that during a naval scene?
I was going to say that, but I don't think it was her master. It was the other mage that's loyal to Floss, I thought.
I'm not sure.
Amiris was the one who killed the sea serpent, and Ilfres was the one who skated out into the to beat up the pirate fleet.
Okay, yeah. So it was her then, or a combination of both of them. But that's what I was getting vibes. Is that sequence?
The original feeling was from that. Okay, sorry, I'm wandering, but I'm trying to. Packrat says Frozen Rain was epic. Blues had a very terrible pun, but deleted it, so I'm not going to repeat it. For that, it wasn't something about something. So
Clara says that Sirius sort of kicked it off when she helped start the bar argument in the beginning. Drawn Knight either provides an escape opportunity. Oh, yeah. So this is getting at what basically what the Drowned Knight aspect is, and getting into actually the Blood Tier pirates. So Drowned Knight either provides an escape opportunity or helps solidify her position. I think she rightly felt responsible for almost being out there. And this is sort of Syria going out and saying, "No friend left behind, I will always save them." And I wonder if that's a callback to the incident with Skinner, right? Where, they went back and got rescued by Aaron and co. Aw, Tomio wants to know who broke the heart of the mage that created Rain of Frozen Tears.
I just said no to that, and you had to repeat.
I love romance, and
yes, okay. Where was I?
Alchemist that likes bugs and wanted to date Syria. Okay, that is the extent of romance in this chapter. I'm going to take it with what I can get. Jeez.
Okay, so that there was some romance if you think. Has Syria had worse first dates from Blue Juice? Blue? You know my response to this. Anyway.
I mean, hit all, right?
Okay. All right, you trolls. We're gonna move on to the next question. So this is the question I was trying to get at when I said when the fight was starting. Why are the Blood Tier pirates making moves on gaining territory now of all times? What prompted them to take over Severe? Is it just a confluence of random events or a particular political move?
Someone paying them to do it.
I think Blood Tier pirates are probably impulsive enough to just decide every weekend, hey, you want to take over a city?
I mean, you say that, but they had the boats in the area.
That was Brack for anyone who didn't know. You're right. It would have required planning. They would have required coordination to get there. They were also there when the army wasn't there, so the siren was vulnerable. And they planned it out so that the gang in question, the Bleak Beaks, were also present, so they could set off a fight, get to a Blood Knight, and then force the Severe to accept their presence. It wasn't something that was just done. It could have been just something that the Blood Tier had already planned for, or it could be something deeper. We never know. It's politics in politics. You never know. So Dvorak says they had the boats and they seemed like the coordination to block off the sisters' communication. The sisters being the Siren and Light Captain. Kylera says possibly an additional safe harbor too. We have something coming up over the edge of the world, right? Also, Tyrion and co running wild, blowing up ships everywhere. That's a good point. They may just be looking for an additional safe harbor, and we're like, we're the Blood Tier pirates. We take what the fuck we want, and they just waltz into this place and take it. Courier says, I think the Blood Tier pirates are fighting mainly against the land pirates, the Garuda. Syria was just a great excuse to force a demand that also breaks the Siren's kept rules, and if she can't keep that together, may as well raid that too. The Blood Tier like people being greater than great, and either Siren does that by getting shit in control, or they continue wrecking these land-based pirates that are starting to shit with them. Okay, yeah, that's true. And Blue Juice says, Syria had been considering hiring them to fight Rochelle. Is Syria planning to use the Siren against Rochelle instead? Stop pushing this, Blue. Syria is not fighting Rochelle. She has no reason. She doesn't even know about Rochelle. All she wants is tools to get the fuck away from people. Blue Juice has been pushing this everywhere.
I mean, it's a valid theory, and
Syria... to discuss it.
The point,
Just don't shut it down, Oshi. Everyone's got their pet theories.
I didn't shut it down. I'm just saying he's been pushing it everywhere, and that I disagree with it.
Well,
I mean,
I think it's
you
a
didn't even
valid
finish
option.
reading it, so I'm not really sure what it is. Let me read it real quick.
Syria's been considering hiring them to fight Rashal. Is Syria planning to use the siren against Rashal instead? Potentially, Kraft says, to assist Pisces. Does she know what's going on with Pisces, though?
She knew at some point that Rochelle had him because, as Blue was saying, she did try to hire the Blood-Tier Pirates to rescue Pisces from Rochelle.
She's a slaver. She's flat out has slaves in her palace. She wanted to enslave the Empress of Beasts and hold her up as a trophy and torture her. There is no world in which she's going to care about slavery enough to go against Rochelle. Please stop.
Well, I mean, attacking Rochelle doesn't necessarily need to be attacking slavery. And that's a crazy thing to try to...
Blue Juice says they literally tell her they might be down for it, the last chapter. He's referring to the Blood Tier, because it's crazy. And Packrat said Yasame is a totally delusional story.
Don't read
that.
Oh, we didn't even really talk about that scene.
We are not. We're getting there, Courier. Let us steer the conversation, please.
I lost track.
Oh, Oshi, chill.
I'm sorry for speaking by accident.
Guys. Hey, back to your corners. Oshi's right. We're just finishing up the scene and then we're moving through. So, and everybody's very passionate. This is a very emotionally packed chapter. So just to wrap up with the fight scene and the Blood Tier Pirates, does anybody else have any final thoughts? We have the Dolphy react, Blue Juice. That's your warning. The eyes of Dolphy are staring at you. Use that. Does everyone like the new emotes? Since it's just total silence about the Blood Tier Pirates.
I haven't even seen the new emotes.
Oh, you haven't, Ochi? Oh, go check them out. They're super cute.
Yeah, I have to look at them. But before we wrap up Sirius section, there is I wanted to ask, would you have been happy with the chapters ending on Syria's epic moment? Could the Eren aspect have been a separate chapter instead?
I was fine with it. It seemed like it fit in pretty well. The chapter probably would have been too short if they just had the Syria part in it.
See, that was Cease. If you're okay, we call you Cease, right?
Yep, that's fine.
All right. Mr. Europe and then Mr. Wiggles.
I thought the Eren bit was great for the chapter. I feel like this chapter kind of works as a finale for the Horns for the volume. If they're not I'm not expecting them to meet up or anything this volume, but if they're not going to do anything else major, then this works as a final piece, so to speak.
Mr.
Just that the last chapter really didn't work that way for me, but this one does.
Mr. Wiggles?
I think it could have worked both ways, but I definitely do think I enjoy having the Eren bit there much more than I would have enjoyed it being somewhere else. I guess it could have been expanded on if it was, given more time. But we already had the Pisces part last chapter, and that combined with this chapter to really, set up just a little mini arc for setting up the Horns for the end of volume, whatever they're going to do the end of volume. So I really do think it added a lot to the chapter, but it could have worked just fine without it.
Okay, we've got Kit13 says, after reading this chapter's ending, no. But if I hadn't, then yes. I felt the ending we got brought about a conclusion to the entanglement theme for the chapter. Jiven says, Eren's segment also established to me that this chapter marks the end of the Horns' arc of survival in Chandrar. And now the Horns may be doing other stuff. Rhythm and Blues, so Discanter, you want to speak up? Eren at the end of the chapter? Discanter? Maybe he's AFK.
Mute button. There we go. So I had two thoughts about Eren at the end of the chapter. One is that Pirate really likes usually doing other scenes of something else at the end of chapters, even where chapters with big momentous things happen. So I think that's kind of in keeping with the general writing style of look away either to see what's going on or to set up future things. The other one is that I think this is that part of it goes back to someone was saying earlier about parallels and differences in the experiences of the different horns, and I think having another horns there, I don't think it necessarily even needed to be Pisces, except that we've been kind of looking in more at Pisces recently. But it helps kind of go, the horns are kind of doing things in different ways and getting up there. And I think that we would not necessarily get that juxtaposition if the scenes were done in different chapters.
Okay. We also have a comment from Kylera that says, the horns are all on the move as of this chapter, so it's time for Fedahep to get involved. He has to have contact with Aaron to kick this off. Blue Juice says, only sad Aaron only had 2 horns on her Secret Santa list. Poor Yivlin and Syria got no presents. Asteria had a response to that. You want to say it?
Leave that until we started talking about that scene.
Okay.
Because we're kind of just keeping this in context with where the chapter should have ended.
So before we shift over, there's a general horns question. The prototypical story for heroic groups is to gain power each step before confronting the big bad. Yet Parrot often has the horns win, unquote, quote unquote, by getting help from outside forces, e.g. the prince, the death of chains. Does this style or trope of writing appeal to you? As an addendum, what is the big bad that the horns will be confronting?
Oh, it has to be the pufferfish. The pufferfish is the big bad that they've got to power up and go face off against.
Pufferfish?
Yes, fish.
What the fuck is what pufferfish?
The guy who cursed them.
Oh,
yeah, pufferfish.
Because he expands and punches people and is poisonous.
The giant undead pufferfish.
Okay, so Asteria thinks Tolv is the big bad they'll be facing. And are you good with the way Pirate has set it up, where they're growing, but they're not necessarily the cause du jour of their own safety? Like, they're not producing their own safety. They're getting help from outside forces.
I'm glad that we just sidestepped the whole I can only do this on my own nonsense. Like, everybody needs help and assistance, and they do a lot under their own power. They've come so far power wise, and they're each holding their own, right? They're not working as a team right now. They're each kind of holding their own on their own with other people. But yeah, I like it.
I asked this question because there was a section where in last chapter where Pisces was in conflict with everybody, and Pirate had a piece where Pisces was thinking about what his team would do if they were here, and it made me think about what would the team have done if Syria had them. They all think about each other and what they're missing when the others aren't there, and they feel like they're trying to achieve something, and they're so much more powerful and capable, but they're always thinking about each other and how their presence would make things easier, would make things better, whether they succeed or not. And I love the emotional through line of that, and I thought it was very cool. Blue Juice said, Kissenberg got an army on his own. Thank you very much. He properly asserted dominance. Okay. Alright. And Discanter has something to say.
So, I don't know. I think I said this a little bit earlier, but I think it's periodically, I think the getting help is there. It feels to me like it feels to me like it has hurt a little bit to have them get to have so much of the time them getting bailed out on things. I think this is particularly with Pisces for me, that Pisces has these plans and has these schemes, and then they're really not all but then they're coming to naught and ruin unless some outside force comes in that he doesn't really have a connection with to come bail him out of to come bail him out. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad writing thing, but it has definitely made an impact on me of I keep hoping that it's going to be something that he and his group managed to do, and that they managed to do
without help. Yeah.
Well, without help, at least without help that they don't have a connection to. Like, I didn't have a problem with him, when it was going to be Brack bailing him out of it, felt happy to me. But the Prophet and his team, the Prophet's people coming and bailing him out felt sad to me.
Okay. So, Base, as an aside, says, I love the comparison of the religious little miracles to a teleportation spell with chests of holding. It's a scene that comes up later, but I thought that was hilarious. Miracles. Miracle thing. But we'll come back to it.
Let Brack talk. Yeah. You go off. You just wander. It's not even ranting. It's wander.
It's relevant to the conversation. Oh my god.
You're ranting.
Now you're wondering about whether you wonder.
We just had a little bit about Pisces, and it connects to the thing, and it's just a comment, and then we'll move on to...
All right. Brack, go for it.
Go ahead. God damn it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the horns and them doing things on their own or with the help of other people. Because the last time we've seen all of the horns right now, they've been on the cusp of learning something new. All the way back to Kisimver, he just got his legacy sword skill. Last time we saw Yvonne, she just started coming into being a gladiator and started learning new things. Last time we saw Pisces, he had a conviction to learn from the book again. He was like, wait, I've been ignoring this. And now we're on Syria, and she just took it upon herself to start learning magic more seriously with Severe. Right now, they're all starting to learn on their own right now. They're at the beginning of a training arc. And that's...
Oh, okay.
Right. Speaking of Yvonne,
there we go.
We got a touch-in with my favorite horn. I love Yvonne. I love her arc. This has been fantastic. So, what did people think of touching base with her, right? We had Xenol just popping in and acting all dramatic, and that ship is sailing, and we had this big confrontation with Queen Yusune. What are people's thoughts?
Tomio has some thoughts on it. Tomio? Okay, Tomio needs a second, so we're gonna let...
Yeah, flashed Javon, the ship that it's not sinking, Javon. It's not.
Javon, could you expand on what you mean?
Mostly being contrarian. But I don't have high hopes for that ship being long lasting because I don't know, Xenol doesn't seem like a character with staying power to me.
For those who aren't aware, in the chat, DM Craft posted with spoilers Xenol X Yvonne, and that's what he's talking about.
I want Xenol to become one of our mainstay. I want him to join the Horns. I so want him to join the Horns. And Dvorak brings up a very sad point. Yvonne won't be around to see her metal mites at work because Yusune... What was the big reveal, guys?
I have no idea. What was the big reveal?
She actually spoke for herself.
I'm sorry. I'm supposed to care about you saying? I'm sorry.
I'm going to smack you.
Okay.
She's not like the army, right? She's
not
like extended army.
I still have an idea of it.
Tomio can speak now, so go ahead, Tomio.
I absolutely love Isame's session because, Isame is in a predicament. She is the queen of Nahavia Fallen, so she has to watch what he says. Her opinion matter and can lead to her death quite easily. So when she finally have the courage to stand up and speak for herself, literally, she can, she let her love for passion for stories overwhelmed her fear of being dethroned. And I love that.
I thought it was
Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny how Yusume like just desperately wants to self-insert into like her own fan fiction. That's like why she's doing all this stuff. I don't know.
Cease. Never. You know what? It's too late to do this right now. So Discanter had an opinion on Yvonne and Naravia's army.
So the bit about I'm not taking a stance on the ships and their sailing or lack thereof here. The thing I was noting is so I think someone mentioned this a little bit earlier, but now's a good time to bring it up again. Is that Yvonne has this force of army? Queen Ysame says, "Congratulations, you've got an army to go find the rest of the horns." So lots of the horns have rulers and armies and things with them, but these rulers and armies don't necessarily get along with each other, and in some cases are pretty actively opposed. So they've got armies in theory helping them, but those armies aren't going to like each other when they get together. Particularly, you've got Severe and Teaker, and Nerhavia's been historically not so great with Teaker either, and we'll see where they get, particularly if as everyone seems to be rooting for, Pisces ends up in Pomley, then we'll have 4 horns and 4 armies and at least 2 active conflicts going on there, and 1 pretty recent conflict. So I'm not quite sure how that'll shake out, or if it'll shake out well.
I think it sounds about right for what the horns are like.
Chaos incarnate.
So we have a couple of comments before we end this. I think from Courier, I think Zanul is a good lead into the chaos that the Naravian. That's not how you say it. So Naravia's fallen court is about to experience from Ysame taking a stance. And the bug plague will hit right before the court acts against Ysame and cause the court to tear themselves apart instead of focusing on getting Ysame off the throne. Okay. And Yvonne will be long gone, and her being gone will make it take longer for them to realize the bugs are her fault. Blue Juice says, this section made me feel like the elevated courtly speech was partly the story being relayed back to Aaron by Fetohep. That's it. We'll say that's... and Tomiov's last comment, and I think it is a start for Ysame to become a queen of stories. She's on the verge of level 30 as well.
I'd be down to keep seeing more of Ysame and Chicana for that matter. I think that would be really interesting. And the sort of big thing is, right, Ysame is in really good standing with her court right now. Yvonne's free. She's no longer a gladiator. She's got armies from the various fallen to back her to get the horns reuniting. So but that's going to be interesting. Anyway, so yeah, we've got lots of interesting, cool stuff coming up with the horns.
Speaking of interesting, cool stuff and conflict with Pomley from the last comment.
Oh yeah, we need to get back to Pomley.
So we did have a short interluding Pomley. That's why I structured it the way I did, so we could go. Never mind. How can the Earthers? One of the questions is, how can the Earthers in Pomley help with their upcoming battle? And as an addendum to that, what can Sally do with Earth knowledge, considering what she has done with Pomley with nothing? She has nothing in what she did with Pomley.
She's like the monster secretary of Israel, like the most epic title ever. I love it.
Not a dragon.
It's you just gave. Okay, I know it's like giving Magnolia. But if Magnolia's focus was just to create a nation so they could level up. You gave a bunch of insane levelers complete access to... I don't know what that... And Pirate's been very careful to make sure that the group in question, we know as little about them as possible outside of the fact that they go to a gym together. And that they train together. And I know you guys haven't thought about this, but the group of people... The way people in the modern world take exercise and they've broken it down, everything from the biology of it to even the most common gym rat knows more about testosterone and how the various chemicals in our body interact and how they can get into the right form. It's the most boring shit, but they know it. Dump that knowledge into Sally's hands, and then put it in Pomley, the bunch of crazy people who like to train a lot. I'm scared. I'm a little.
You know,
bit
I just
scared.
noticed this. Sally and Salis.
Yeah.
Salis. Oh God, too many S names. Okay.
Cells.
All right. I will never get these names right. But Courier says that it fits the secretary perfectly, finding a place that would be insane to get together, and she's actually like managing it. The real ship was secretary and Excel spreadsheet technology. Dvorak sort of says, hey, like, look at how impactful the UG group have been, right? And then we've got Raleigh's group, which are way more competent. So yeah, them with the secretary is going to be crazy, scary probably, and productive.
Brack says they're going to be importing a whole bunch of chicken and protein powder. That sounds about right.
Oh yeah, for the protein. I wonder if protein powder exists.
I mean, they have alchemists, and once they understand what a protein is,
the baking soda.
Here's how I know protein powder exists. Remember, the queens were bitching about the fact that the alchemists couldn't render particular things into the right materials. Want to bet that they will try to learn once they learn what protein powder can do? Mr. Europe, you got something to say.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the Earthers there in Pomley to hear about the Drathian tonics and stuff like that, and incorporate that into their health plan to just make people who can jump across continents.
Andy says, I want to know how Sally got the information out of them, since she says she lost patience with their hedging. She pays attention, and part of what makes a good secretary is they know everything, or they at least try to know everything that's going on in the business or whatever thing that they're involved in. And I would think she'd have skills to ferret out information. At least that was my justification for how she was able to figure it out. Blue Juice says the Earthers made anime training rooms. They might make fantasy fight programs a reality. The Earthers have the power of God and anime on their side. Oh boy. Okay.
I mean, maybe anime, but not the gods, dead gods.
Well, he's referring to the prophets people. He's saying they gathered anime power, and oh yeah, no. Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so that kind of wraps up Homily. It's always nice to touch base with them. Really enjoy I actually did anyone catch the reference to how Homily got started? It seems like they purposely started as former slaves. Was that?
They have a heavy anti-slavery origin. I don't know. I think it's very specific to their origin. It's been brought up 2 or 3 times, way long ago.
If I recall correctly, it was Pomley was started by a bunch of martial artists and former slaves who escaped, and they went to this desert place, and they were like, okay, we're gonna get together and we're gonna live here, and you can't stop us. We're not gonna be enslaved again. And that's the general scope of what I understood their history to be. And they're not exactly an old nation, so I don't know.
So they're a bastion of slaves that now the world sees as a bastion of martial artists. And then some people walked in with slaves.
It's never been stated that it was slaves. It was just martial artists gathered around the pond, and then people were like, hey, we can tax them, and then found out they couldn't, is what has explicitly been said about Pomley. Maybe there were also slaves, but that has, I don't think, ever been stated anywhere.
Blue Juice says it sounded like they were fighting impressment into military service. I have very little information about this. I was hoping one of you would do a fast search and find it for us. I know there was some discussion or a couple of lines about Pomley's history, but we don't really know anything.
I don't think we've gotten a lot on it, honestly. Nothing's ringing any bells.
Okay. We're going to move on and end the
boss
discussion.
has left us.
Yes. We're going to move on, and we're going to end the discussion on the future. So we're going to start with the first question. How did you feel reading the last line of the chapter? Did it hit the right note?
Well, hold on. What about Kissimiver?
What about him?
His whole section.
He appeared, the vizier was shown, They blew up some stuff and they moved on. There wasn't really a lot.
It's
What
still
else was there to
scene.
discuss? It was
It's
a cool.
literally
What-
the entire
what-
scene.
What did people think? Does anybody want to talk about this, or should we move on? Was this a non-event in the chapter? Did people not want to check in with Nisa? Did they like this scene?
How dare the Vizier insult the cute, adorable faces of scorpions?
I found it impressive that the Vizier has to have glasses to read a letter.
Mr. Wiggles, you had something to say.
I predicted Vizier was going to be going to Kissenver when Aaron and Fetahab were talking.
I
That's all I
remember
want to
that.
say.
You did predict that. That was a very accurate prediction, Mr. Wiggles. It was a funny interlude between two bigger parts. That's what it was. It doesn't really evoke a lot of discussion.
I think it's interesting. Sorry to just I'm doing the thing that I do, but it's fascinating that the magical paladin sword that's faith related but not in a religious way is slowly getting closer and closer to an isolated monastery of monks. Like, I have a hard time believing that isn't going to escalate the Kinsver and Nisio plot very heavily.
Those are not like monks in a Christian sense. Those are monks.
No. I don't mean it in a Christian sense. I mean in a more like abstract belief way. Not something that leads into a god or something that specific.
Cool. Packrat says, therefore, I am the crazy vizier. Banger line. Brack says it was cool that they mentioned the prophet's peeps and gave them more presents. Rosie says it is also now close to the prophet in comment to Courier's thing. I think the prophet's in Zakiel, right? Not
the sword.
I understand the sword is what we're talking, but I thought the sword and the monks were in a different place from where the prophet.
Now recording.
Oh my god, that was
Thanks, Greg.
Okay. Hey, yeah, we're gonna. Okay, I'm moving on from this.
I thought it was great. I thought it was a fun scene. The meteor strike was. Anyway, Fight's just always a hoot. Letters.
Terrifying.
That does bring us back to kind of the ending scene and also kind of playing into the future, which is where Oshi's trying to get us to.
How did you guys feel reading the last line of the chapter? Did it?
Brack felt like a rat cloud. Oh no, that's the reaction.
Oh, this is in general.
Hit me right in the feels.
Javon, what hit you right in the feels? Give us more than that.
Well, I don't know. It's nice seeing Pisces finally getting some comfort out of his experience in Chandra, knowing that his friends are still looking out for him.
Okay, cool. Mr. Wiggles, then Mr. Europe, and Tomio, again, I'm confirming, yes, the he believed line. That little section where it led up to that he believed. And then we'll go
and then
to
cease.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Wiggles.
I know I've said it like 3 times now, but I really love that line. It just like Jivon said, it just really touched on, Pisces finally getting a little bit of comfort after going through so much in Chandra, and just, getting to know that the person he's been worrying about this entire time is still there. And it's like, I really like the scene. Really, really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I agree. It's like the only
Courier,
home.
There's 2 other
Sorry.
people, and then if you want to speak, you're welcome to.
No, you're right.
Mr.
I should have.
Yeah, of course, I loved it. Thought it hit me right in the field as well. Agree with all that. However, there is one little thing. I'm a bit confused about whether that's the only message or whether there was more to the message that Aaron sent. I don't know because there's only one line, the I'm not dead, only ching, blah, blah. I'm not sure if Pisces is reading the Aaron solstice sign over and over again, or if this line is the last line of the message. Either way, I'm little bit disappointed that it didn't say, oh, by the way, Cause is here. She says hi. But overall, I thought it was wonderful.
DM Craft reacts. There's
Oh,
definitely
sorry. No. Sorry, I was just going to... just last thing is that clearly this shows that Pawn's religion is better than the Prophet's.
Okay. DM Craft says there is definitely way more to the message, and Javon also responds, it read to me as what we saw was an excerpt. Cease, go ahead, you're up.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, I don't know. Just like I think it was foreshadowing of like Aaron becoming like a deity at some point later on. I don't know.
What made you think that?
Not the message itself, but like Pisces saying like he believed, and then also like kind of falling back on how like we were just talking about like Pawn's religion is better than the Prophet's religion, and I don't know. It seems like it's tending to that direction, like eventually.
Okay. Tomio says the part when Pisces was so shocked that he nearly dropped the note, but quickly pressed it to his chest in fear of losing a piece of Aaron is beautiful. It was very emotional, and we had like a bunch of reactions going like, yeah. DM Craft says, I feel like next time we catch up with Pisces, we'll get more of the message. My personal opinion is Pisces only, like, there was a little line that said that the message was very Aaron-like, rambling and weird and stuff. Pisces we just got to see the part of it that was relevant to us, that Pirate wanted us to see, so they could, give us an emotional gut punch of cry. Now, I put this in the document myself because I didn't cry or get emotional or anything, and I feel like I'm the only one, and I apparently am. So, yeah, I'm dead inside. Courier
It's okay not to have a heart.
Courier says the final bits mentioned the people peeking over his shoulder being confused by the last lines, which only make sense to us. All right.
Did anyone else think the line was kicking off a Pisces-Aaron romance and Pisces is transitioning more into like what Aaron was describing?
You can't turn everything into a ship.
Yes,
you watch me.
can.
You watch me.
Asteria, I'm with you. Like, even if I don't believe in your ship, you are allowed to ship.
But did anyone else read it like that? Bone Mommy? Sure, yeah. What Pisces and Aaron. They even have a kid together.
They do have a kid together. Even if the kid is a mass murderer, it's still a kid.
I mean, honestly, which character isn't at this point?
Good point. So,
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, like, which one isn't?
No, there isn't anybody. I'm saying.
Maybe Ryoka? I don't think she's killed anybody.
No, she killed a bunch of goblins.
She killed a goblin really early on.
And remember, she also led a bunch of soldiers to their death, invited goblins to kill off an entire Null tribe. Moving on, but we'll let that go. End of volume is coming. What are your guys' predictions for where it will end?
Mishra and Lynette.
Mishra? Who's Mishra?
Mishra.
Who's Mishra?
Marsha?
You know who Mishra is.
Marsha?
Mishra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Lynette and Mishra are gonna reunite. That's what I feel like we've been building to all volume. I mean, Mishra has kind of been the major character other than the Horns. The Horns plot isn't resolving anytime soon. So Mishra is it's not spelled okay, fine. What Mishra
It is spelled with an R. Don't you dare say that.
No. Silent R's are kind of a thing.
Anyway, I think it's going to end with Mishra and Lynette reuniting, and
there's just no
Aaron's going to get kicked into volume 9.
VR will silent to be Mishra, not Mishra.
Okay, so Mr. Wiggles had something. Oh, sorry, did I skip over somebody? Yes, Mr. You're first, and then Mr. Wiggles. We got a lot of Misters here. Mr. You're first, and then Mr. Wiggles. Go ahead, Mr. You're.
Yeah, I think that the only two candidates are for the volume end is Aaron returning, which seems premature unless the chapter goes, or the plot goes very quickly, or the Newt and Misha and Kisha, of course, there. With and which of course sets up a very nice thing where something goes wrong and suddenly the two dragons and Leon swoop in and save the day, and in a very wonderful message.
Okay, Mr. Wiggles.
I firmly believe it's going to be Aaron Cure. Like, I just don't see anything else that has been built up as much in this volume. Like, the entire plot line of the volume has been everyone going out, getting a cure for Aaron. So that just, like, hands down 100% what I believe it would be.
Okay, and Blue Juice says, it shall end on a boat. I believe in Pirates' boat-based vision. In seriousness, a Horns reunion and a new threat that necessitates the armies they each have. Okay, that's a decent thought. We have Cease. You had a comment, and then Jivan.
Yeah, so I agree with Mr. Wiggles. I think that Aaron's going to come back, though it's probably going to be like last line on the end of the volume or something like that. And then in terms of Blue Juice saying like the new threat coming up, it's probably going to be like the gods or whatever, right? Like that's probably going to start becoming like a big theme starting with the end of this volume is my prediction.
Okay. Jivan?
Well, generally, I think there'll be probably multiple climaxes like we kind of got last volume. And I think Aaron is almost certainly going to come back because I don't think there's any world in which Aaron doesn't come back at a volume climax. And if Aaron stays dead for all of volume 9 as well, off. Is just off.
I'm with you right there. I'm not a humongous fan of Erin and her current iteration right now. She needs to grow the fuck up.
I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to this volume.
But
her lack of growing will be restrained.
We do need her back. She needs to grow up and she needs to come back. Those two things have to happen. Tomio says, I fear the volume will end on a cliffhanger that Lion being kidnapped back to Kalimfar. Rosie says, I think the bigger question is that otherwise, is the cure going to be an entire another volume? Or the middle of the next one? Because it feels like it'll be big either way, and if it isn't finished here, it's far off. Base and Blue Juice, in reference to the possible new threat for the Horns to deal with, say that Base says it could be Rashal, Blue Juice says could be Norheld? I don't know what that is. Oh, that's right. The god. The god arrival on the... Okay, whatever. Dvorak says... Yeah. Dvorak says, I'm betting Roshal, 50% chance, Emperor of Sands, 20% chance, or Actilio, 30% chance of major moves.
We haven't had any... We don't have enough build-up or development for the Horns. Roshal, maybe in the future, but... I mean, remember, this volume started with Mishra. It started with her reaction to, losing her family. We've had her kidnapping. We've had Nolmoot dragging on for several volumes. And that seems like the plot line that's the closest to wrapping up. I mean, we've got Lynette headed out to rescue her daughter. I don't really know where they're going from there, but the reunion seems like the one that's got the closest ending point, honestly.
That's a good point. And on that, we're going to end the recording. Thanks for listening. It's December 15th. We were discussing the chapter that just recently came out, the Poof chapter, PF.
Wait. Are you still recording?
We're going to end the recording right here.
Okay. Yeah, no, wait. So we didn't discuss this, but I was so happy that we got a Rel update, and we got a mention of Jacana. Rel's still alive. Beto, right, gave us the update, and maybe we'll see him for Christmas.
Maybe we will. Maybe he'll be reunited with his daughter. And
wouldn't that be the best Christmas chapter? Oh, that would be amazing.
That would
be Oshi, before we end, I would actually like to hear what people think the break is about, like for the recording.
I know we want to speculate
That's good
on
discussion.
it, but I need to end the recording, and I think that this is good enough. We'll keep that
Okay.
for post discussion. So again, I'm saying December
The
15th.
Orange Juice King.
So how about you start a second recording?
December 15th. It's December 15th. Thank you for listening. We've been discussing chapter 8.58, the P chapter. Thanks for coming. That'll be it for us.
Upon a hill there sits an inn, that's where our happiness begins. I don't know where we'll go or how it ends. I hope in part it can explain why sparing goblins not so strange, and when the hammer falls we'll walk as friends. Head scratcher, kind-hearted, vicious and mean, Short Hilt who always kept his blade keen, Rabbit eater with a champion's smile, Bad arrow makes a shot over 2 miles, Soul bard who walks with a heart rent asunder, still plays with the lightning and sings with the thunder. The inn's been broken and rebuilt, materials both plain and gilt, for it's a place that changes and persists. One constant through it all is there's a sign outside the wall. It is a credo none can resist. For if you break it, you'll be banned and laid out with a frying pan. You won't get in no matter what you try. She'll teach anybody chess and doesn't think them any less. Antinium, call her the sky. The inned home these goblins, the Red Fang Five, who went into hell and then came back alive. For the innkeeper's friend and a band of lost gnolls treated Lisker's great dungeon as just one more stroll. A skeleton is serving drinks, an innkeeper without a blink arranges magic lessons for a child who turns over a new leaf and still young becomes a great chief. She'll build goblin home deep within the wild. Through the fog of coming war, the inn's a haven for Liskor to drink, make merry, argue for a while. Antinium, get up and dance, a goblin band plays bad romance, they bring down the house with Gognum style. Humans arrived with a goblin lord, catapults and an unstoppable horde. The 5 and their brothers and cousins all rose, they saved that damn city who then left them for crows. 3 who lived have parted ways, their dream of building better days. He tries to leave, but someone holds him dear. He plays his music at the inn, sees family he's found within. The crowd applauds, he smiles through his tears. One followed the chieftain to build and create. In an old enemy he found a mate. The second sought kin and adventure instead. As for the last, he carried the dead. Beneath the magic garden shrub, a goblin plays with an old cup. They chase each other back and forth like fools. In tragedy and ecstasy, the wandering inn's great legacy is this: no killing goblins, Liskor's rule.